So I'm going to switch things around a little bit. That was an amazing paper. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure you thought it was incredible on how to use crowdsourcing in the humanitarian area. I'm going to move a little bit onto a more commercial area. And what I need is my clicker to work. Great, okay. So obviously we all know massive digital change powering this individual revolution that's infecting people's organisations all over the world. And that's the environment we typically work in when we're trying to help a commercial enterprise understand how it can use the power of that digital revolution within their business. And what I'm going to be talking about is just taking through a case study we did last year with a large commercial property developing company to crowdsource ideas from the outside of their business, and then talk about how we took that thinking to crowdsourcing internally within the business and how that worked for them. But first of all, some numbers. So we did some research last year with about 3,500 people all over the world, asking them what they thought, using a social media framework, about being involved in company decision making. And the first thing that really stands out is that almost 90% of people will tell you that they want to be involved in company decision making. And then if you ask them if they've had experience, we've got down to about a third of those people saying, yes, I've had some experience in collaborating in that way. 25% say it's a wow. If I can be involved in company decision making, if I can help form that company, it becomes a real wow for me in terms of relating to that company. And then if we ask them, do you want to be a participant in some kind of crowdsourced collaboration framework, which we call a consumer consulting board, we get around 75% of people saying that they're interested in being involved. So as we've already seen, there's an enormous amount of positive will in getting involved in these kinds of platforms. Case study I'm going to take you through was done for a company in Australia called AMP, and they were interested in trying to understand what the future of retail would be. Now, they invest in big shopping centres, and obviously you're all aware that digital shopping has had a massive impact in terms of what's going on in large infrastructure shopping centres. We know in Australia that around 10% of all shopping is now happening online, and for big shopping centres, we also know that having online shopping in the market is the equivalent of having another $1 billion shopping centre just down the road from your big investment that you've just spent $1 billion on. So it's a big problem, and it's a big opportunity. So what did we do? We took a 4-stage process, and in the first stage, we went out to retailers. We crowdsourced about 2,000 retailers, and we asked them what they thought the issues were, the challenges that they were dealing with within the future of their own retail environment. So why did we do this? We're working for a retail company, but we all know that our thinking may be a little bit limited, and we wanted to draw on the crowd of retailers who were all dealing with the problem to tell us what they thought the issue were. So stage 1, we crowdsourced their opinions. We took them to a website. I'll show you that in a minute. Stage 2, we got a bunch of consumers across Australia and New Zealand, about 80 of them, people who love shopping. We brought them to an asynchronous closed online platform, and we used the agenda that we got from the retailers in our online closed discussion with the shoppers. Phase 3, we took what we thought were our insights into a 1,500 quant survey that we ran across Australia and New Zealand to try and confirm what were our insights. And phase 4, we shared our insights back with the retailers in an interactive website. So we completed the process. We went out to ask the question of the retailers, and we came back and gave them the answer. So first of all, this is the website we took our retailers to. A broad call to action across Australia and New Zealand: come and tell us what your issues are. We did a number of things here because one of the problems can be that you get so much input from retailers that you don't know how to understand it. So in one space, we allowed them to open-end responses to us, and you can see a bit of a cloud, word cloud there, which is pinging up some of the big words that are coming up through that response. We used a bit of text analytics to really get through that amount of data as fast as we possibly could in that part of the website. And then, of course, we went with a traditional quant survey because that allowed us to understand the answers far quicker and give us some format to what we were looking at. So massive amount of data that we structured in different ways. Some of what they told us is pretty obvious. Retailers struggling with what does value mean? How do we deal with digital in a face-to-face environment? How do we interact with the shopping experience? How do we dial that up to really engage shoppers in our space? Lots of challenges for them around entertainment, digital, value, and really struggling with how they can engage with shoppers. We then took those insights into a structured discussion on what we called a consumer consulting board. So I mentioned before, it's an asynchronous platform where we design a discussion, in this instance over 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks. We get 50 to 150 people. They have to be engaged in our topic or our brand. In this instance, it was a topic, it was shopping. So there were 80 people who love shopping, and we wanted them to engage with us in a conversation about where they saw the future of shopping going. The platform looked like this, and this is a two-way conversation, this platform. So you see down the bottom there's a cafe. That's where they can all say whatever they like. They chat amongst themselves. We really encourage this to be a two-way community, a conversation where these people can get to know each other over a longer period of time. We took them through a number of activities over the 2-week period. One of those rooms you can see is a trend spotting corner. We trained them in the art of trend watching. But let me show you what we did in the first week. We encouraged them to think about shopping through different eyes, to look at shopping through different eyes. We asked them to identify trends that they could see, and we asked them to explore the past, the present, and project that into the future. And that helped us get a sense of where this group of people saw shopping moving to over a period of time. We also really wanted them to explore touch points and think about trends and where they thought the trends might be going. And because they were online, they were able to explore wherever they wanted to. Upload videos, upload images, tell us about cool experiences they'd had, bring it all together into one closed online space so we could really come to grips with what they were seeing. And then we asked them to tell us about what's memorable for you now. Tell us what's inspiring you, and tell us what cool trends and things you're seeing out there. So this really helped us to understand what's real in the shopping experience for people, what's online, and it gave us a very strong sense of where we see the shift moving in retail shopping. Finally, of course, we had to tell our retailers what we'd found because we asked them for their opinions in the beginning. So we built a website which we shared in a visually interactive way some of the insights that we were able to share from this project. And probably one of the most important things we found out that we think the future is about digital bones and human faces. And I don't think that's anything different to what you've been hearing all day today. Digital bones make things work fast, they make them work smooth, they make technology a frenemy, not an enemy, but the human face is absolutely critical. And the future of shopping is about maximising the both of those two drivers. More and more as we go digital, shoppers want human faces, they want interaction, they want sensory experiences, but it has to be powered by digital bones, digital veins, things that make things flow very smoothly for them. So this is a case where we started with the crowd. We asked the crowd who had an interest in our topic, what were their concerns? Then we went through a process over what ended up being about 12 weeks to go back to that crowd and say, well, actually, this is what we found. So their reward was actually in the sharing of the insights. But where does it go to next? So where we're going next with this kind of thinking is it's one thing to ask a crowd of retailers, what are your challenges in the retail environment? But the challenge that we often face when we're working with clients is the client organisation might be 1,000 people, 2,000 people, the project team might be 10. And we need to more actively crowdsource internally what the thinking is. So one of the things that we've built is an online application to work with teams to do online SWOT tests. So instead of just asking my project team what they think the strengths and weaknesses are, I can source this into as many people as I can possibly get onto my platform into the organisation. So I get a much richer sense of what the problem is. What we're finding already is that we will reorientate our research objectives by around 30% by including a much broader group in the project definition very early on in the project. Not only do we get a better project definition, but we're able to understand what the organisation thinks about the problem. And once we see the consumer view, we can feed back the difference much more clearly and with much more clarity. The other thing we've been doing with some clients is building interactive websites for large companies so that when we're live with consumers in our synchronous online platform, we can show them what consumers are saying. Because one of the big challenges I think now for most commercial organisations is data that sits on a server and that isn't used is dead. It's dead every day. And what we have to try and help organisations do is live off that data every day, empowering and enabling organisations to make good decisions every day with a real consumer framework. So we're really trying to help organisations use platforms internally so that The front line and the management and everybody within the business is coming as close as possible to a real-time consumer insight with decisions that they're making every day. It's about trying to get organisations not from knowing things, but actually experiencing what the consumer is telling them day to day in their working life, and trying to make that a habit. So rather than the traditional way of working with consumers where you get an insight and you'd work it through in a one-pillar process, make inspired consumer insights habit creating every day for the business. And where we're taking this now, which we're beta testing in a couple of businesses in Europe, is to create a platform which is fully interactive and which is an interactive studio, so that the organisation, be it 500 or 5,000 people, can interact every day with real consumer insights so that everybody is empowered to take the business forward in a consumer-inspired direction. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, which I've done really quickly because I know we've run out of time. So any questions?
I'm just wondering, what's the most surprising thing that's happened, and what's like the most interesting thing that you didn't expect to come out of these kind of projects?
Lots of stuff. We always have blind spots. So the best thing that happens is when we set up a platform, we have this cafe corner, whatever we call it, on whatever project we're working on. There will always be stuff that comes up there that the internal business team never thought about because they've got these blind spots. And one project in particular, it was a big investment project, and the client had one part of the facility that they just didn't want to talk about because they knew it was a problem, but the consumers just wouldn't stop. And so we had to say, right, guys, yeah, we know that's an issue. But the client came straight to us and said, this is amazing. We've needed this information for a long period of time, but we've never been quite sure how to do it. So allowing people to have a real conversation around it was a perfect way. That's one example. I've got loads of them, actually. People, we typically find, some of you might find this surprising, Gen Y males, and males generally, are brilliant in this platform. They talk behind a handle. They're much more comfortable talking behind a handle, especially when we talk about shopping. Aussie males can be pretty... Are there many Aussies here? There's only one up the back, so I'll be kind... I mean, Aussie males are not great shoppers typically, but what we find is when we talk to males, young males in this platform, they will talk a lot more openly about fashion, shopping, and how much they enjoy it. So you get a different side to people, and they share much more. So typically we'll go for 3 weeks in a short immersion or consulting board, and people will, by the second week, be wanting to meet up, have coffee. They really connect in quite a deep way. So it's normally surprising things that the client didn't want to hear or hadn't expected to hear, or connections that get created on the platform that seem to be ongoing, because we're trying to create a real connection amongst people.
Yeah, we talked before lunch. There were a couple of questions about how to kind of give value to the crowd.
Yeah.
In what different ways have you been working with that?
Yeah, we love to experiment with that, because one of the fun things we do about this is, I think somebody mentioned it before lunch, there's many levels to this, and it's something, I've worked in research now for 17 years, and it's something we've always struggled with. People come into this process generally extrinsically motivated, that they see it, they come through some kind of process, and they are extrinsically motivated. Anyone who works through this process with us is paid cash for their contribution. Depending on how hard they work, we might pay them up to 150 Australian dollars for a couple of weeks' contribution on this platform. But more importantly, we gamify the process. We look to make it fun. Over an Easter period, we might hide Easter eggs in the platform for people to go. So we're really trying to help people have fun with this. We surprise them. We might give them free movie vouchers. So what we're trying to do is we bring them in quite honestly, in that you're working on this with us. We will pay you. But when we do our job well, they're intrinsically motivated at the end because they know they've been heard. But hopefully we've had enough fun with them along the way that it's been a really rewarding process for them as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Erica.
Okay.